Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you are all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are out there in the world. So everyone is on the edge of their seats, waiting, praying, and hoping for Altseason to officially start. And everyone is questioning when that will be. Now, I have been talking about it for a little bit of time now on the channel, right? And a lot has changed. Listen, I saw a lot of comments on the last video talking about how we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for Altseason. Guys, look at what just happened with Bitcoin, right? We just saw a major move in the market for Bitcoin in the last year. I mean, we're talking about roughly sub 30K all the way up to 70K. And even if you go back to the 2022 lows, so back here at about roughly like 16K, 15K, guess what? Bitcoin has gone on to do a tremendous move in the market. Now, you might be saying, well, Nick, what about altcoins though? Yes, altcoins will also follow. Like as we look at Ethereum, right? We have this nice low down here. I don't know why they added this to this chart. It's actually a terrible thing that they did. But regardless, right, like if we look back on Ethereum, the low here was about roughly $1,066. It hit about $4,000. It didn't do much in terms of a move to the upside. And majority of the market is like that in terms of altcoins. Altcoins have barely moved in the market. Now you might be saying, well, what about Solana, right? Because Solana has done a tremendous move in the market off of the lows of sub $10. But you got to remember that this is an altcoin that basically got completely wiped out because of FTX. And yes, I know most altcoins did, but not in the way that Solana did. But you also have to remember that Solana does have a lot of VCs behind it, so they can pump Solana heavily. But also, the meme coin craze really caused Solana to surge. Outside of that, though, like there hasn't been a lot of moves in the market for a lot of these altcoins. And I've showed you guys this on multiple occasions. Now, why am I bringing this up? Why am I talking about it? Well, because like I said, we are still waiting for Altseason to officially begin. Now, Bitcoin, it's still ranging around 64K or so. I've talked about just yesterday the prices that we want to see maintain on Bitcoin, which we will go over in this video as well. But today we got some pretty big news, and that was Republic First Bank officially collapses and is seized by regulators. This happened today, and you know, it's interesting because this is something that a lot of people will say, oh, well, this is extremely bearish, right? And although on the macro, this is a concerning factor, right? But we said back in 2023, when bank collapses officially started to begin, that this was not over. This is going to continue to grow and grow and grow and become a much larger problem. And now, as you guys do see, this is like the second bank, I think, this year, might even be the third one, that already started to collapse. And I said over here, March of 2023 called, they want their headlines back. In all seriousness, go check the Bitcoin chart from March of 2023 to now. When the banks started collapsing back in 2023, it was a catalyst for crypto to pump even higher. But is that still the case now? Well, we don't know yet. We still need to be, patient and calm. But if we actually look back at that time, right? First off, here's December of 2023. Dramatic collapses made 2023 the biggest year ever for bank collapses or failures. Now, I actually think that I think American Banker jumped the gun on this one because I do think that this is going to continue to become a big problem, right? Like we're going to continue to see banks collapsing, and it is because liquidity is so constricted right now. And what is going to be the answer? Well, we've talked about it on multiple occasions. I'm not going to go into too much on that, right, and speculate, but I've talked about it on multiple occasions already. But outside of this, right, let's fully focus in on Silicon Valley Bank. So if we look at this, this was March 10th when this officially collapsed. Let's go and look at a few things happening around that time. So the dollar. This is currently what the dollar looks like right now. This, to me, is nothing too crazy. This is on the weekly, right? This is what the dollar's doing. waiting for the big move to the upside or possibly the downside. Now, I have two areas outlined on this chart. We have this green zone and we also have this red zone. The green zone is support. The red zone is resistance. This is where we would essentially watch for a move to the downside. So far, we have been holding on to this trend line, and you could argue that it looks more so like this because I do think that that was more so on the daily. But this is what we're basically watching for, and we're waiting for a big move to the downside, waiting for this to break or so. That way, risk on assets go pretty crazy. But the one thing that I'm really looking at is March of 2023. Guys, let's go back to March of 2023. This was the level that it was trading at. Roughly 105, 106, right where we are at right now. The bank collapse has happened, right? And this is the week of. So let's actually go back to the daily. Let's zoom back out, right? Let's go back here to March. So March 8th marked the top for the dollar. And it was at the same exact level that we are trading around right now. March 10th is when the bank collapse happened. After that, guess what? The DXY collapsed back into this support zone, and it continued to range sideways and even go lower. Currently, we are at the same exact level. We are getting news of the banks collapsing yet again, and the question is, are we about to have a sell-off? Because we're still fighting this resistance level quite heavily right now, and we're waiting for the next big move. I'm personally expecting the DXY to sell off. Remember, right? These collapses, this was on a Friday. Right before, this is right after the close. You have to look at the time. This is after everything closed. And it was on a Friday, right before the weekend. Guess what? Same exact thing here. After the close on a Friday. Interesting. I do think that the dollar is about to have a sell-off. Now, outside of the dollar, we've also been watching the US 10-year government bonds. For anyone out there that is not watching this, I do think that this is something that everyone should keep a close eye out on. Why? Well, let's go back in time. Here's 2017, 2018. Now, during this time, this chart just basically ranged sideways, and it allowed for crypto to go extremely parabolic in the alt season. Now, what's the link between this and crypto? Well, it's basically just the higher the price here is more of a preference to like risk-free assets, or at least lower risk assets. And essentially that is like, all right, well, if this is going higher, let's look at money market funds, things like that, or even just like stocks. Stocks will do pretty good depending on the category that they're in. But essentially a higher US 10-year Treasury bond, or government bonds in this case, the lower crypto. It's bearish for crypto. In the past, if we go back to 2020 into 2021, for an example, this was after it sold off heavily in March of 2020. It ranged sideways for a while, then it started to gain momentum in January and essentially flipped the supply zone, or the support zone, sorry, and it started to break up to the upside. Now, during this time, I've said it, April and May was pretty much the topping point for most of the altcoin market. Go look at Dogecoin, XRP. There's a lot of altcoins out there that topped right around that same time. And this is because this flipped the support zone. It was very bullish. It lost it slightly in July, and for it to really kind of break to the upside, it allowed for altcoins and the rest of the market to continue to pump slightly during this time. And then it went parabolic. And this was essentially the nail in the coffin for crypto. This is the bear market, and it continued higher and higher and higher. Now, on the monthly, this is what this chart looks like. So if we're looking at this, right, this area that we're currently at on this chart is a significant level of, one, resistance, but also support. The question is, are we going to flip this, or are we going to do something like back in 2007 where we hit this level and we sold off heavily for years to come? It's questionable. I do think that this chart is close to being topped out unless, and I say unless, we flip this level here at about roughly 4.93%. If we flip that, then that is going to be a very bearish sign for crypto. But in the past, this has been a chart to definitely watch for. On the monthly, though, as you guys do see, and again, RSI You can look at RSI however you want. I still think that it is an indicator that everyone should keep a close eye on. It's close to the topping point that we were at back in 2018 after this started to sell off heavily. Again, this is a level at which the RSI is overbought. So I'm definitely watching this chart closely along with the DXY, because even back in March, as you guys do see back here, right? March allowed this to sell off into April. And this also allowed Bitcoin to go parabolic a little bit. If we look at Bitcoin during that time, now I'm on the weekly here. I'm going to go back to the daily and show you guys. This is the week of the collapse. Now, Bitcoin did sell off, right? It went from roughly 22.5K down to about roughly like 19.5K. And that was the last time that we saw sub 20K. After that, the next week went from these lows of like 19.5K all the way up to about $28,000. And then it just continued from there. Now, if we look back on the daily, here we have the daily chart. Here is March 10th. Now, this was March 9th, the day before the collapse. We were already in a free fall. The collapse, well, it allowed for, the price to drop a little bit further. But regardless, look at the next 1, 2, 3, 4 days in a row. It was just up only. Then we had a slight pullback and then up only again. And from there, it just continued and continued and continued. Now, this is what the current chart looks like for Bitcoin. And ultimately, what we are waiting for is a move, right? It's very similar to the dollar, where we're just kind of doing this. Now, this is technically accumulation, waiting for the next move. But the question is, are we going to get a move to the upside, or are we going to get a move to the downside? Now, just like my video from yesterday, the big thing that I was watching for is, are we going to maintain a higher low? This is 61K down here. What will be our higher low? Is it the level that we're trading on right now? Are we about to have, a strong close today? Or are we going to, have the 62.8K level be our higher low? It does not matter, right? The big thing to focus on is us to range here and get a move to the upside and close over 74K up here. That's the big moment. Until then, everything is in question. Everything is uncertain on what's going to happen with the market. But the big thing that I'm focused on is us maintaining a higher low, because if we don't maintain a higher low, I've already told you guys, this next demand zone down here is going to be the next focus. And this is a significant drop from where we are at right now. I'm not saying that it happens and it has to happen. I'm just saying that this would be roughly a 16% all the way down to like 20% drop. Right now, most of the market is chopping because Bitcoin is chopping. We're waiting for Bitcoin to actually make not only a higher low, but also a higher high. We've been fighting the 67K zone for a little bit of time now on 3 daily candles in a row before the sell-off today, the sell-off that happened on the 24th into today. So we're watching for a break above this level to create a higher high, and we want to maintain a higher low. The local low might be in around this level, but we could still have a move to the upside, right? So let me get the brush. So what we could see is a move to the upside, and before we hit 74K, we can reject somewhere around here, right? Where we have something like this happen. And then we get those lows ran all the way down here into this demand zone. Now, it's not a guarantee that we see this. I'm just saying from here is where we really kind of watch for a major rejection or a major move to the upside continuously, right? And when I say continuously, I mean this will basically be our move to the all-time high, to the actual top for Bitcoin, and that will be our bull run and our alt season in the history books. From there, that's where we top out, and that's what we're watching for right now. So this last move here is just chop, and it's weighing in on patience. And this is what will shake most people out, is just the patience aspect of waiting for Bitcoin to do something. Now, also, if you do want to follow the trend lines, we're kind of watching for an impulsive move off of this level that we're on right now. We want to see something happen here. Now, is the bank failure that thing? It could very well be, because just like back here, right, we were having a pretty significant sell-off in March, and then that marked the significant low. That marked the bottom, and then we continued higher. It's definitely something to watch for on Bitcoin right now, going into not only the weekend, but also next week. And yes, the weekly candle close is this week. And if we look at the weekly right now, it still looks pretty rough. We're still watching for something to happen here on the weekly because so far this has just been, trailing to the downside. RSI is still overbought. And also MACD losing momentum. So we're watching for something to happen here. We need volume. We need a push above 67K. And from there, we really kind of watch for a higher high on not only the daily, but also on the weekly. It would be huge above 71K. So we're watching that closely. Now, what about altcoins, right? Because we've been talking about altcoins for a while, Altseason. So just like yesterday's video, we're still watching this. We're still waiting for a move. And just like Bitcoin, we have been chopping here, waiting for something to happen. This is close to a move. We should see something this next month in May or possibly June. But this has just been ranging. And a lot of people are growing tired of waiting. And I get that, right? But look at where we're ranging on. We're ranging on the same exact level from the 2022 timeframe before we had a nice spike up to the upside of $822 billion, almost $823 billion. And this is the last level before we actually go and retest the all-time high, even candle bodies on this chart, which is like roughly around $1.05 trillion. And the upside target here is like 1.13 trillion. Now, this is the last level that we need to cross in order for us to actually go to the $2 trillion to $2.5 trillion level that I've been watching for on the altcoin market for a while. But until then, right, like we're just chopping and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to be impulsive at all. But look at the XRP Bitcoin pair. Look at the XLM Bitcoin pair. Look at the QNT Bitcoin pair. Look at the DAG the DAG Bitcoin pair. All of these altcoins look very similar where they're absolutely killed on the Bitcoin pair. Just like XRP, right? Look at this. Back into this demand zone. RSI, oversold. The worst oversold level since going all the way back to 2019. Again, this chart is ready to pop. XLM, Bitcoin. Again, there's not a lot of price data here. It only goes back to like roughly 20... When does this go back to? So roughly 2019. Yeah, 2019. But the thing that I'm really kind of focused on is RSI. RSI is the most oversold since going back to just March, actually, just recently. But this led to a little bit of a trail to the downside, but then an impulsive move. And so far, 2 weekly candles in a row have been solid green, which is very good. And also MACD, momentum is starting to shift a little bit while we're getting across. Same with the RSI. Similar setup to the XRP Bitcoin pair. Now, what about QNT? Well, QNT, very similar here. Look at the levels that we're back down into. We're back down to the July 2021 lows and also even the June 2022 lows. Each time we saw big impulsive moves to the upside. And by the way, RSI, most oversold in the history of this chart going all the way back to 2018. We're waiting for a big impulsive move to the upside. And also DAG, just for an example, right? Almost back into this demand zone, going all the way back to 2018, 2019, even almost 2020. Here's December of 2020 to 2021, same level that we were at right before the big moves to the upside. And again, this all confirms the fact that like the total 3 is getting close. It's getting close to having a big pop to the upside, but we might get a little bit of chop, right? We still might chop down to this bottom trend line. We could even retest this demand zone down here if we lose that trend line. But the key thing is to watch for what is happening right now around crypto. These bank failures, although yes, they're bad for the macro, they're good for the short term in terms of risk on assets, because we're going to start to see a big move, in my opinion, on the DXY that could very well be to the bottom. We still have to watch this closely, right? Because this still could break out to this upper level up here. And this is more so on the monthly, right? So this is what the monthly looks like. We could still break to the upside up here at around like roughly 109, almost 110. 10-year could still break up to this 4.93% level. But from here, we really kind of watch for a sell-off back into a demand zone. The only demand zone here on the 10-year is like around this level here at around like roughly 3.25% to about roughly almost 4%. Both of these charts are the key to watch right now in terms of Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin dominance has already been weakening. I've been talking about Bitcoin dominance for a little bit of time. That will lead for altcoins to actually get a break against their Bitcoin pairs. But this bank failure, right? In the short term, yeah, it might mark our bottom. It might mark our significant low that we have been waiting for. Now, is it going to go as low as these 59.6K levels? Probably not. But I do think that as we look at the daily, right, we're still chopping here against the 63K level and against even the 62K level. This is the level that we need to maintain. And it's actually slightly a little bit lower. It's on the resistance zones back here from February. So it's like 62 point almost like 6K. And it seems as though we're about to get a tap of that. From there, we watch for the impulsive move to the upside. Or if we are going to break down to that demand zone. This demand zone is still in question and it could still happen, but I'm not expecting it. But we definitely have to be prepared for either scenario. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.